Evening, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. As mentioned, my name is Matthew Blake, and I'm, as you can see, the Personnel Director for the UK office. It's a privilege for me to be here with you this evening. This is my first ABC. I know there's only the second one, but it's my first. So it's a delight great for me to be here with you, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the evening. I want to take the opportunity really in the next kind of 5 or so minutes just to explain to you kind of what I do really, a little bit more about my role, because it's quite new and we are shaping it furiously at the moment. Judith's smiling there. But also to kind of explain and to share a little bit about who I am with you as well, and a bit about my journey. So I sometimes still feel like a new boy. I haven't quite done 7 years, so I'm way off my certificate, way off anything else, to be honest. So I've got a few years left to wait. But I've been in retail all of my career, and prior to joining Tesco, I've always been in, well, mainly either stores, operations sides, again not with Tesco, but with some fairly well-known retailers in and around London. And the second half of my career, because I think my career has been of two halves, is being in personnel. So some of that time outside of Tesco, as I say, for this last 7 years, since I joined the business, has always been in personnel. And I've had 5 jobs in just short of 7 years. 3 of those have been working with the commercial teams in the UK, particularly in general merchandise and clothing. And I've had the great privilege for the last 3 and a bit years to be based overseas. So I've been in Hong Kong, based in Hong Kong for just over 3 years, which has been absolutely not just a professional amazing experience, but also one that's been a fantastic personal experience as well. Moving out there with my family, having my daughter out there as well, who was born in Hong Kong. And for 2 of the 3 years, I was supporting the international sourcing business, which, for those of you who know anything about sourcing, is fairly diverse. We've operate out of 10 or 11 countries, 11 countries now I think it is, changing all the time, across 12 different hubs. So quite a small team, but hugely diverse, all the way from Morocco through to Egypt, Turkey, into Shanghai, India, Sri Lanka, and obviously Hong Kong, and Cambodia as well, so I remembered them all, that's quite good. And then for the last year of my time in Hong Kong, I was supporting the group commercial function as well, so working with Michael Fletcher, Kevin Grace and the leadership team in group commercial. And then I moved back to England, on the 1st of January. Literally at 5 o'clock in the morning we landed in the cold, dark, wet weather. And the sort of literally a couple of days after, started properly in my role in the UK office working with Judith. So I want to share some of that with you today in terms of what that means. So I'm going to test you on this next slide, because it's probably one of the most complex ones you're going to have a look at. So I just want to basically explain to you how the personnel team works, very, very simply, because I think it's useful in terms of context. I'm going to fast forward here. So basically, you may know we have some what we call driving functions. These are basically either countries or businesses that basically have their own P&L, generate profit for the business, and they're either the UK, which is really, I suppose, in a region in itself because it's so big, and I'll explain to you more about the UK structure, but also we have other countries and regions such as Europe and Asia, dunnhumby, the bank, and our developing businesses, telecoms, Dobbies, etc. And each of those teams would have a personnel team within each of those business areas. And then we have enabling functions, and basically what those guys do are across all the functions. So as you can see, finance, personnel, commercial, and marketing. And where I sit is obviously in the UK country, and I work as part of Judith's team and with Natasha and a lady called Rachel Howarth, and we form the personnel leadership team for the UK. Okay, so I've got to flip forward, that's all a bit confusing. So basically I want to just explain to you how that works actually in the UK. So as mentioned, Judith there right at the top as the UK Personnel Director. Rachel Howarth is a colleague of Natasha and mine. She's not here this evening. But basically what Rachel looks after are some central personnel teams. So very simply, she looks after reward and benefits, employee relations and our employee relations policies for the UK. So that's what we call a skill. Under scale, she looks at all of our UK entry programmes, so graduates, A-levels, for example. She also looks after the academy, which isn't just for the UK, but it's also for Central Europe. And those of you who have seen it, she's been fundamental in the academy refresh that's taken place at Ponsbourne, which looks absolutely amazing. She looks after development programmes and our lovely payroll and people system as well, which is going through a fairly high level of change at the moment. And in terms of change, she also looks after our organisational development teams and looks after sort of change programmes as also engagement. So that would include the UK People Plan as well. And then my role and also Natasha's role are fairly similar. So what we look after basically are operations, which is a big part of our role, so how we deliver the people plan with our functions, and also how we look after the core cycle of activity that we go through sort of year in, year out within the business as well. So we're the guardians of that within our functions. We're also responsible for talent within our areas, so me for the office and Natasha for the operations side, which is also including resourcing, what we call STEM-FT, which is operational skills training, and also, as I think briefly mentioned, health and well-being as well. More of that in a second. And then in terms of my role specifically, so I look after, this is quite interesting this slide, we'll fast forward quickly. So basically across the top, I have my jobs in two halves. I look after a fairly big operational part of the UK office, which is all the areas across the top, so everything from food to marketing to property, and I work very closely with the leadership teams in those to basically make sure that the people plan and the core cycle activity is delivered successfully. And I have a team of operational personnel managers as well, who basically look after employee relations, talent within their functions, performance management, coaching, and so on. And then the four boxes around the outside of what I call my kind of central or support team, and those areas, as mentioned briefly, are resourcing. So we worry about all the recruitment for the UK office, which also includes how we recruit graduates and A-level and other entry-level programmes into the UK. So that's really all about our talent pipeline, people coming in at those entry-level roles and how we grow them through the organisation. Operational training as well. So as you know, the top of the tier is leadership, STEM the tier is all around the operational, the skills you need to do the role. So I look after most of that for the UK, which doesn't include food and gym, but I won't go into that now, so it's probably a little bit too complex. I then have a team looking after talent, so a really big agenda for UK talent as well. And that includes looking at all the data and insight, how we're doing on talent, how we're doing on our talent initiatives around developing young talent or female talent and so on. That's a big part of my team. And with that comes how we look after the overall talent cycle for the UK as well, just to make sure we're doing the right process and managing that correctly and working very closely with the UK leadership team on that too. And the talent role also includes looking after all of our options people, so 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and again how we look after our graduate and entry level programmes as well. So a really, really big talent agenda for this year, very exciting. Equally exciting is our health and well-being agenda as well. So I have a lady in my team called Sue Carty, who's quite new. I don't think she's here this evening. And her role is to develop the group blueprint for health and well-being. So what do we want health and well-being to mean for Tesco as a group around the globe? That's her job to develop that. And once we've got that blueprint in place, she'll be responsible for deploying that into the UK business as well. So we'll see some changes coming through in the coming 12 months on health and well-being. It's quite an exciting area for us. And finally, Sue also looks after occupational health for the UK as well, something which many of you will be very familiar with in your roles in stores and the office as well. So that's basically the shape of the UK office. It's all quite new. I'm not quite week 9 into the role. I'm a little bit further ahead than Andrew, but not by much more. I think hopefully the next kind of 3 months will help us carry on really, in the right direction in terms of developing the team, developing our plans that support this overall structure, and making sure that we've got a very, strong UK office team for the coming years ahead. I think, so that's the what really, and I think in terms of the how, I was asked to describe kind of what I think it takes to deliver in this role, and it goes back to Judith's point, to be honest, which for me just comes down to the leadership skills. I don't think it's anything more than that. I think if you go back to the slide that we had at the beginning around how the UK as a driving function works with all the other different parts of the business, that's where collaboration comes in, because I can't deliver in my role, nor can Judith or Natasha, if we're not working collaboratively across the rest of the business as well. And that takes up a lot of time, a lot of energy, but it enables us to make sure we land things successfully and we move the people agenda forward. Empathy, and I won't go through them all, but I think it kind of speaks for itself. And I think for me, it's those 5 leadership skills that enable me to be successful in my role, and it's something that I know that my team take very seriously as well. And they are relatively new. We're still embedding them, but it's an absolute key part of our focus going forward as well. So that's a whistle-stop tour of the UK office. As mentioned with everybody else, I'm here to the end of the evening. If there's any questions or any kind of thing you'd like to discuss further, you can find me. I'm very tall, and I think that Judith's done her story about the giraffe, especially for my benefit as well. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your evening.